that we did. Chris, were you on that one?
No, I missed that one.
Oh, okay. Well, what I would suggest is, I know Paul was on. What I'd suggest, Chris, is go through and watch that hangout from yesterday.
Yeah, I heard it was really good, so I definitely want to do that.
It was really good, and it was actually something that Chris took from one of the more recent conversations that he had with Gary, and it's an interesting conversation to start wrapping our heads around. And what I wanted to do, hold on, let me pull up my notes here. Man, my computer's been just ridiculously slow. And so what I wanted to do is just continue that conversation a little bit. And so Chris, just to kind of bring you up to speed, what Chris Suarez was talking about was based off a conversation with Gary. And Gary said, basically, we need to be ridiculously competitive in our value proposition. And then that turned into a conversation also about commission and not losing any listings right now due to commission. What I just wanted to reiterate was that that conversation wasn't about, hey guys, let's go in and just offer up right away, being, similar to the cut rate brokers. Our value proposition isn't that we have lower commission. Our value proposition is, of course, what's already laid out in our listing presentation, and everything else that we go through and we talk about every week. It seems like we're always constantly adding more and more and more value to our clients, which I love. And so just to reiterate, it had nothing to do with cutting commission necessarily. However, it did turn into that conversation about about doing what it takes to get the listing at the end of the day. And so what I just really wanted to talk through, and Chris had actually, and I don't know, I think he might have posted afterwards, just a couple of scripts and conversations that we can use surrounding commission. So real quick, before we dive into that, just wanted to, we have our room's doubled. Sorry, I was in my notes. Hey guys. So I just wanted to real quick before we dive into that, hear your guys' takeaways about the conversation that we had yesterday. It was a pretty powerful conversation. And in fact, the hangout ran an extra 15, 20 minutes, right? And we typically don't do that, but we were on such a topic and on such a the commission conversation. So I just wanted to, for the people that were on the call yesterday, some takeaways. What did you get away from that? What did it change any of your perspective when meeting with sellers? But wanted to open it up for just a quick conversation on that one, because it's an objection we're going to get a lot, right? And so being able to navigate through that conversation that we had yesterday is going to be more and more important, especially as more and more agents are getting into the industry, and especially as more and more value propositions for some of these tech companies that are entering our world is a value proposition of cutting commission. So any thoughts from yesterday's conversation?
Yeah, I really liked the menu pricing, especially since when we do a lot of these phone calls, they are pushing us on the phone. Well, what's your fee? What's your fee? What's your fee? So I've come across that a few times, and I wasn't really sure how to handle that with professional etiquette. So that was really good. I love the line, I charge everything from 0% to 7%. I love to come over and tell you more, or whatever it was.
Yeah. And really what Chris and I were talking about a couple of days ago was, what are some things we can do to move the conversation forward to at least either getting that appointment, because we are right now ultra focused on appointments. So what can we do right now to move that conversation forward to at least get us in at bat? Let us get in front of somebody. And if it's just a commission conversation, then, right, we say that in terms of a listing commission objection, we never handle that over the phone. And what I love what you said, Erica, is it just gives us the opportunity to at least address their concern and say, you know what, we have a varied rate commission schedule. We have a commission menu that you can choose from, and I'd love to talk to you more about that. Mm-hmm. And it just gets the objection out of the way for right then and there. And at least it gets us into the threshold of the door, which I love. Paul, did you have something? Or are you just letting us see how dapper you're looking today?
There you go again. I'm finally parked, that's all. No, I mean, just to follow with Erica, I just love the fact that you're literally giving this decision on the client, right? Because so at the end of the day, it goes two ways. They're ultimately calling their shot in regards to the type of service that they want to receive ultimately. But and to have that option where, everyone would love to work with us, and sometimes it's just that the C word, the commission aspect of it, right? But now it's to the point where, hey, we can do what they offer, but actually better, because you love working with us. And that was a great takeaway from me yesterday.
Absolutely. It's funny is I was on a listing. I was on a call. It was a referral from an agent, and I was talking to the seller, out of state, power of attorney for the mother and everything we were transitioning. And she said, well, you know what? A boutique brokerage in our area, they're more of an independent, and they're very boutiquey, and they focus on a higher price point. It's not one of the national brands, but they're very well known in our area. She said, well, my friend works with this company, and she only charges 3.5%.
What? How does she make a living?
Well, what she was saying is that's her fee, and then all you have to do is decide what we want to pay a buyer's agent. So, right, that's a 6% commission, because we only charge 2.5%. So It was interesting to even hear other agents scripting and how they're communicating commission to consumers. And so then this consumer thought that the total fee was 3.5%, but what that person was saying that they were talking to was just talking about their side of the commission. And so then we can choose a menu of, we can offer them half a buyer's agent, 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, 2.5%. It's up to you. My fee is 3.5%. And so, and I've heard that actually as a technique from other brokers as well, So we just really need to wrap our head around what consumers are hearing out there. I'll tell you right now that there's tech companies in our market center right now, like the Redfins, they're blowing up my email inbox as if I was a consumer or a seller, offered 4% total commissions right off the gate. So it's just something that, and I'm so glad that Chris brought it up. So much of what we're told, especially in terms of how we need to be so firm on our commission, honestly, a lot of that mindset comes from different markets, right? Like that might have been a mindset that was adopted and cemented in a market where that was the case, where maybe it's a little bit more of a buyer's market, and we do need to offer, maybe we're offering 3% now to buyer's agents to incentivize them to coming in. Maybe sellers are starting to offer $5,000 in closing cost credits just off the bat. So a lot of where this, hey, I need to be super firm, might have just been a different market. Whereas, we're in a different market. We're in a way more competitive market. We have more agents that are coming into our market. Properties are selling pretty fast. So therefore, sellers are feeling like, man, we're overpaying because this is like, 30 days and they're getting this $10,000, $20,000 paycheck, and it was 30 days worth of work. So I love what Chris put together here. And what it does is, I'm going to really quick right now, I'm going to put this in the notes. I'm just going to copy and paste so you guys have it. And what I'll do is I'll post this on Slack again. There we go. So you guys can see, this little script here from Chris, and it's not necessarily a word for word. I mean, it's a good script. It's not necessarily, it's not letting me copy and paste into there. It's a conversation, or it's not letting me paste it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in Slack so you guys can all see it. Okay, perfect. So it's in there. So, what it does is it addresses somebody that immediately is saying, hey, would you do it for 3 or 4%, right? And at the top of that, it just says, hey, you know what? I'm certain that you can find an agent in town that's ready would list your house for 3 or 4% right now. And can I tell you why? It's because there's never been any other time in history where agents have been coming into the business, right? There's so many people right now coming from other industries and other jobs, and honestly other skill sets than real estate, just because they're in it to feel like they can make a quick buck, right? Mm-hmm. So right now there's more and more agents, more than ever coming in. And honestly, they just don't really understand their value as a realtor. They don't understand the power of negotiating and getting top dollar for people. So what they're willing to do, and their perspective is that they can just put it on the MLS and it's going to sell. So of course they're willing to cut their commission down to 3 or 4% right now. They'll offer 2.5%. They'll take 1 or 2% themselves, because all they're going to do is, quite frankly, just put it on the MLS, because they don't even really have a skill set to continue to market your property, know how to market your property. And quite frankly, when it comes time to negotiating, they don't even know the different negotiation points. So that's why we're seeing that. And that's why you're Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. That's probably why you're getting a lot of lower rate commissions right now. And then going down to the second part of that is, can I tell you why I'm concerned? That last agent you talked to agreed to reduce their commission to 4.5% right out of the gate. You see, they've already demonstrated to you exactly why perhaps you shouldn't hire them. Because I believe the second most important thing an agent should do for their sellers is to market and expose their home properly. The first most important thing an agent should do is protect your equity and negotiate on your behalf. And what that other agent did, that just right off the bat came in and said they listed at 4%, they've already demonstrated how well they're going to do with the number one most important thing, and that is negotiate and protect your equity. Because quite frankly, they were willing to get rid of their equity so quickly. What would they do to your equity? And then the conversation really went into this, which is that bottom section, if you guys are looking on Slack. And this was the conversation we really started to dive deep into yesterday, which was that having a little bit of a menu pricing, right? So we give them some options. So here's what I'm willing to do. We can sign the listing at 5.5% commission. If I don't get it sold within the first 30 days, I'm willing to reduce my commission down to 5%. If there's no co-op involved, I'll reduce my commission to 4%. And if you find the buyer, it's unrepresented, I'll reduce it down to 3%. So you do have some options. So does that is that uncomfortable to anybody?
No.
To offer that up? Pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I loved about this is what Chris said, is because they'll hear the 3% and then they're immediately going to go, oh, well, I'm going to do everything I can to find a buyer.
Yeah.
And this is going to work with for sale by owners, especially because they're already saying, oh, you know what, I can sell this on my own. So in their mind, they're only thinking about that 3%. But what do we all know? You're not going to find an unrepresented buyer.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about that 3%. What would be a good objection? I wouldn't know, but I'm just coming up with for sale by owners I've talked to, be like, if I'm finding the buyer, why do you deserve anything?
Does anybody want to jump in on that one before I do?
Negotiations, legality, managing the paper flow, mostly the legality, making sure that they get the most out of their sale. From repairs, what if the appraisal comes back low? What if they want to negotiate on the terms of closing? Yeah. I really push for the negotiation part and the legality part.
Yeah, and I always like to bring in, and then if anybody else has anything else to share, jump in. I always like to, I said, you know what, I totally understand it. And, we are here, really honestly, about a third of a realtor's job is to market the property and to sell it. The other 2/3 have to do, once the marketing the home is done, and we're involved in the transaction, it has to do with negotiation. It has to do with negotiation before you even receive the offer. It has to do with negotiation when you receive the offer. It has to do with negotiation, when it comes down to repairs. Negotiation when it comes down to, a low appraisal. Negotiations at closing when the buyer wants possession, wants to move stuff earlier to your garage. Quite frankly, it's the total risk and liability, but a lot of people just don't understand what's going to be the best protection for them moving forward. So negotiation is a big, big piece of this. The other piece of this is that, you know what, Mr. Seller, I'm going to keep you from getting sued. I'm going to be the one that's going to be creating the legal documents and the statutory forms that are required of you as a seller throughout the transaction, so that you're protected, and you're going to be making sure that you're disclosing everything that you need to, that you're adhering to all the terms of the contract, and you don't give a loophole for a buyer to either back out and cause you to be on the market for more days on market. Now, a lot of people would say, you know what, I can hire an attorney. And I will suggest attorneys in some cases, absolutely. But the problem I fear about using an attorney is that attorneys charge by the hour, right? And quite frankly, they're going to want to make sure that they get, as much billing as possible. So is that going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of an attorney's time to look through this? And what bothers me about that is that if you hire an attorney, and let's just say something doesn't happen, let's say the buyer backs out, they get cold feet, the inspection doesn't go as well, they run into an appraisal issue, or perhaps the lender, which wasn't properly vetted, just couldn't get the job done. Well, now you spent $600, $800, $1,000 on an attorney, and you're right back to where you started. See, if I'm representing your side for that 3%, you're only going to pay that once you're completely satisfied and once the deal is completely closed and you have money in your pocket. So there's a lot of work that I could be doing, and potentially if something were to go wrong, at least you're saving you about $1,200 in attorney fees along the way. So I always like to bring in that attorney piece and talk to them about how attorneys charge by the hour, and then if something were to happen, that you're still on the hook for paying that fee regardless. Yeah. Versus our services, we only get paid once you're happy. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything else that they would add on that, other than the negotiation and the legality?
It's pretty solid.
I think that's pretty much all you need.
I mean, with FSBOs, the other piece is unqualified buyers, right?
Oh, good point, Tim. I like that. So, and that has to do with tire kick. Are you talking about like tire kickers and time?
Yeah, buyers that are pursuing, rent to own or, some alternative because they're not qualified buyers and they're pursuing FSBOs by design. That with a broker, that would be part of the role, would be to qualify those offers and those buyers before they go under contract.
Yeah, great point. Great addition. So time dealing with unqualified buyers. What about investors targeting for sale by owners? What about people trying to lowball for sale by owners, right? When you hire a professional, you expect to pay a little bit more, right? Versus going to it's that garage sale version of real estate, right? When you go to a garage sale, what you want, bottom dollar, you want to negotiate. It's a $4 little thing and they want to get it for 25 cents, right? So that's it's the same thing. FSBOs are kind of the garage sale arena of real estate. So great points, Tim. Thank you. Awesome. Anybody we have about 10 minutes left. I just wanted to make sure that I touched base on that commission piece. I wanted to post the little script there of the menu pricing. Also just wanted to reiterate, this is kind of, for me, this commission pricing is a little bit more of a Hail Mary after I've already really shot and pushed for my 6 or my 7% commission. And the key, I believe, before you go into the menu pricing is really, really, really isolating the objection. And really, really, really getting a commitment prior to talking about that. The last thing I'd want to do is us to lower our commission and then them say, oh, well, so really we need to ask, and those questions are built into our listing presentation, right? Like okay, so I understand you're a little bit uncomfortable with the commission piece right now. Is there, has the marketing plan that we've laid out, do you feel that that's the marketing plan that could sell your home? Yes. Okay, great. So other than commission, is there anything else that's holding you back, or is there anything preventing you from signing the contract right now? Nope, that's it. Just commission. Perfect. Okay, so here's what I'm willing to do, and go right into that 5.5%, 4%, 3% conversation. And from there, it would be interesting for them to be able to pull out from that, because now we've given them what they want, and then we've given them some ease on that commission piece. But the key is, for me, is that you isolate that objection and you get a commitment from them saying, hey, is there anything else other than commission in terms of why you would not sign the contract right now? And then address the commission and say, does that sound like a commission schedule that sounds fair to you? Yeah, that sounds fair. Perfect. Then let's, I want to get to work. So here's the contract, just slide it across the table. So with that menu pricing, I would really just make sure that we've encountered and handled all of their objections. But with the last 8 minutes, are there any other objections? Anything else that you guys are encountering out there, right? I'd say commission is probably the biggest objection that I'm getting right now. Anybody else getting something else out there? And maybe it's just objection on even why to meet. Not even like, hey, we're sitting across the table, because I know we're focusing on appointments.
I actually have a question. It
Sure.
doesn't happen very often. However, just maybe a few times. so far this year, and it came up the other night at my listing presentation at For Sale by Owner. Our marketing pieces and our door hangers talk about open-ended contracts. And I want to know what's a good way to talk about that, because I'm not really sure what that means for them if and after we get into escrow.
So once you're in escrow, they can't. So the open-ended listing contract is just an open-ended clause within the listing contract that says that you're not satisfied at any time, you can terminate the listing just in writing. Shoot me an email, let me know that if you're getting the service you're provided. So once you're in contract and you've secured a buyer for it, though, they owe you a commission. Yeah,
the listing contract protects our side after that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So, and what's interesting is Chris. I'm thinking back to like 2009. He always had the open-ended clause in there. And do you guys, I'm thinking through thousands of transactions. I don't think there might have been one or two people out of literally thousands of listings taken that actually used that open-ended clause. Mm-hmm. And it was just a way for Chris to make them feel better. And what happens is that when you deliver on your value proposition, when you work really, really hard for them, and let's say the property's not selling even, but they know that you're out there doing open houses, you're door knocking, you're emailing all the agents, you're on the phone calling agents, we're doing all the things that we talk about in our listing presentation. They're not going to terminate. They're not going to just pull the rug out from underneath you when you show that you're working hard. So that open-ended clause, use that. We use it here. If and it's really, if somebody doesn't really want to work with us, do we really want to work with them? No. And so if you're using buyer broker agreements, I would say the same thing. Yeah. Say, feel free to, there's a couple different types of buyer broker agreements out there. Some people use like a loyalty agreement, which is, it's not super binding, but it is a commitment document, where it says, hey, I'm committing to doing all these things. You commit to doing these things. Mm-hmm. You could put an open-ended clause in that. You could also, if you're using your state forms for your like buyer broker agreements, which tend to be a little bit more scary in terms of putting the buyer on the hook for paying commissions and so on and so forth. And that is a legally binding form. You can write that into that form too. Utilizing open-ended clauses might just be that one thing that makes the consumer, your client, feel more comfortable with just signing the contract. So good question.
Thanks.
So I have my thoughts, but I'm curious others. So after or during an appointment, they say, well, really glad to know value. We just, we'll get back to you in a week. We want to think about what we want to do overall.
They might not want to sell.
Well, just right. I mean, part of their decision is based on what the value, what could they get for their house that determines what they want, what direction, whether they sell or stay. And then they want time.
Yeah.
Got it. Just to kind of sleep on it. Well, what I would use in that situation, Tim, is I would go with I totally understand that. So here's what I'm going to suggest is that there's a lot of lead up time. There's a lot of things that I do on the behind the scenes before we even go live, before we even start making some really committed decisions in terms of going on the RMLS. So why don't we do this? Why don't we, I'll put a little clause in the contract, and I call it the sleep on it clause because it sounds like you need to sleep on it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the sleep on it clause in there, and we're going to sign the contract now because you've already felt that, the marketing plan will work. You're already happy with everything, all the services. So it just sounds like you need to sleep on it. So I'm just going to write this little clause in here that says, you know what, that I'm going to put that this contract is going to be effective as of this date. The date, maybe it's 2 days from now. It gives you guys time to sleep on it. And so, but I'm going to get this signed now, and I'm going to start immediately getting to work and start prepping my call lists for some agents. I'm going to start prepping maybe some of our internet advertising right now. And what I'm going to do is that, in 2 days, if you call me and you tell me that, it's not the right decision, I'll tear up this contract and we can part ways as friends. Does that sound fair?
Smart.
Sounds good.
Very smart.
So that's an open-ended clause. That's a sleep on it clause. That's that's honestly, just call it a sleep on it clause, but it is an open-ended, right? Like, hey, you can terminate this contract anytime in writing within the first 7 days if you just feel like it's not right for you. However, I want to get to work. I'm really excited. So I'm not going to stop that because you do want to be to X by Y, right?
Yeah.
So That's how I would handle it. I mean, I would push for that if they're still feeling like, hey, I'm not really into that. Although I've used that, I haven't used it too often. I've used it, and what happens is they never call you in 2 days and everything. It's past that sleep on it time, and then I call them just to let them know, hey, just want to let you know I've got it up on Zillow coming soon. We've already started our marketing. We've got the just listed postcard ready to go. But I just wanted to follow up with you. Are we still looking good? Like, what are they? Oh, actually, no, we decided. So that's how I would handle that. But they never back out of it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Right on. Any other questions? I know we only got a couple minutes.
Hey, JP, real quick. How about the ones where they say, well, love to sell, but we don't know where to move to, or not sure what we can afford next?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, we get that a lot, right?
Yeah.
How I'm going to open it up to the group first. Hannah's got her hand up.
Okay, so I have sellers, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, Paul, but what happened the other day is they were like, hey, we want to list our home. We want to move into another place. And actually, I didn't really create a ton of fear behind them being homeless. Like, I was like, okay, you guys, we're going to do it. Like, if you need to do a second move, you're going to do a second move. If we're going to find a property in the next few weeks, you're going to find a property, and that's going to be great. And actually, it took a ton of like stress and like relief, I think, off that next buy process. And they're like thrilled because now their home is under contract, and we have 3 more days to find a home, and I'm leaving town today. But I think that we found one because I didn't put a ton of emphasis on well crap, and because I think as agents sometimes we they're I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to, I don't want to do a double move. And we put so much pressure and anxiety and stress on that. And so this one, I was just you know what, I'm just going to let go, and whatever is meant to be is meant to be. And it has worked out perfectly. And I don't know if that's a script, and I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but it's something that I did. And I was wow, that really worked out really nice. And I think that there's going to be some sellers that really works with, and there's going to be other sellers that are no, Paul, I can't, I'm not even going to do it. But I think that the other script to that is saying, my job in negotiations is to try to make, my job in negotiations is to make you not homeless, right? So we need to price it right. We need to do our marketing right. We need to do all these things right. So that way, when a buyer comes in, they're willing to give you what you want. Plus, they're willing to possibly negotiate on a rent back period or whatnot. So
that's been my approach too, and it's worked extremely well.
Mm-hmm. And I always take it back as well that there's going to have to be, right, regardless of rent back, regardless of buying before you need to sell, there needs to be some sort of dollar amount with that kind of concession, right? So maybe we price it lower, and that's our concession to get that rent back, or have that opportunity too. So.
Yeah, there's a couple other techniques that you could utilize there, Paul, is that you could pull up based off of, so you have an understanding of what they're looking for, and you can pull up properties that have gone pending in the last 30 days that might have fit for them. And you can say, hey, look, here's all the properties in the last 30, 60 days within your search criteria that were on the market. And these are opportunities that you said that you would be interested in. So, had we got your home on the market about a month sooner, we would have already had some opportunities for you. So you can look at what's already been selling and just try to get a list of about 30 or 40 properties that are generally basic to their search criteria, and show them that there have been opportunities and that we just weren't in the market at that time. And so the more we're not in the market, the more we're missing out on these opportunities. Another way that, and I know we're going over, just want to address this real quick. Another thing to do is I'm trying to mute Paul a little bit. I can't do it. There you go. Another thing that you can do is really talk about and try to disassociate themselves with a convenience decision and talk to them about a financial, what's the best financial decision for them. So we already know that the best financial thing for them is going to be to list the home first, to get the most amount of money there, because, you know, you start writing contingent offers out there, and what do you have to do to the sales price of your listing? You typically drop that down because now you have a 30-day period where you have to sell your home. So you can also tell them that, you know what, money in real estate is always made on the buy side. It's actually, it's typically, it's always your acquisition what's going to make you money in real estate. And what concerns me is that every month that goes by, and I could pull up my S&P and I could say, you know, every month that goes by, we're seeing 0.9% appreciation. So every month that goes by, you're losing about 1% equity in your next investment. So I just want to make sure, are you making a financial decision, or are you making more of a lifestyle or a convenience decision? So, so really talk about that acquisition on the buy. Say, you know what, I totally understand that. And what most people are doing right now is they're just mentally prepping themselves for a double move. And in fact, and to Hannah's point, and in fact, you know what, most of the time we're able to get 60 days rent back. You know, we're able to negotiate through the negotiation process. We're able to negotiate you some extra time to find what you're looking for. We can even put a clause in there that it's subject to you finding replacement property, you know? So if a buyer really wants your home, they might have to wait, you know, a couple weeks, and perhaps we don't start all the timelines, but at least the buyer knows that they have a place that they're securing. They feel good about it. And you know, you're afforded the opportunity that the sale is subject to you finding replacement housing. So I think there's a few different ways you can attack that one. And you can even call it, I mean, you can get fancy and call it your homeless buyer program. You're like, don't worry, I got you covered. I got a homeless buyer program for you. In fact, it's been a need for many of my sellers, and it's a way to avoid being a homeless buyer, right? We never want that. So I have a whole program laid out for you. I'm not going to go into the details because I'd have to make it up right now, but you would go in and you would talk about your negotiation. You would talk about, you know, getting some rent back. You would talk about some of the clauses that you put in there. You would talk about pre-marketing the home and trying to find and secure a buyer prior to even going live on the market that's willing to pay your price and give you the rent back that you're looking for. That's your homeless buyer program. But it's better for them to honestly probably move, just, you know, I don't want to move my stuff once. Perfect. Why don't we do this? How does it, you know, would a storage unit and perhaps a furnished rental for 3 months, would that make, you know, maybe just a chance to go live in the Pearl District for a couple months? That doesn't sound so terrible, does it? So try to give them some options and try to really get their head around that financial decision versus convenience decision for them. And that they need and your job as their realtor is to help them navigate through not so much convenience, but really more financial decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, guys, we ran over. I appreciate you guys being here. If you guys have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
You too.